Now, it's an important week for President Obama, a chance to reach out to Muslims. He's been speaking to the BBC about his goal of rebuilding America's relationship with the Muslim world. In a wide-ranging interview on the eve of a visit to the Middle East, he said the United States should no longer try to impose its values on countries with different cultures and histories. He was talking to our North America editor, Justin Webb.
Mr. President, thank you very much for talking to the BBC.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's really good to be here. Let's turn straight to your big speech, hugely important speech you're making in Cairo on Thursday. Many Muslims think they're owed an apology, actually, for the Bush years and the sins that, in their view, were committed by the United States during those years. Is this speech in any way an apology?
No, I think what we want to do is open a dialogue. There are misapprehensions about the West on the part of the Muslim world, and obviously there's some big misapprehensions about the Muslim world when it comes to those of us in the West. And it is my firm belief that no one speech is going to solve every problem. There are no silver bullets. There are very real policy issues that have to be worked through that are difficult, and ultimately it's going to be action and not words that determine the path of progress from here on out. But it did seem to me that this was an opportunity for us to get both sides to listen to each other a little bit more and hopefully learn something about different cultures.
You say both sides, so I take from that Muslims listening to this speech, you are hoping will also be changed by it, and their attitude to the United States perhaps change. What needs to change on the behalf of those you're actually speaking to?
Well, I mean, let's just take one small example. The U.S. Muslim population is more numerous than the populations of many majority Muslim countries. We have a huge and thriving Muslim American community. We have Muslim Americans represented or who are serving in Congress. We've got a president who's got family members who are Muslim. So this notion that somehow America is detached, is removed, sees some clash of civilizations as inevitable, I think a lot of the propaganda and dogma that's churned out there is inaccurate. Now, the flip side is that in the wake of 9/11, what is also true is that in a whole host of our actions, and sometimes in our words, America has not been as careful to distinguish our very real need to hunt down extremists who would do us harm, something that's necessitated by our self-defense, and broader policy differences or cultural differences that exist that are best approached through diplomacy and conversation and some self-reflection on our part. And so that's the kind of back and forth that I think is going to need to take place. And the last point I made, because I should actually correct myself when I said both sides. There are actually many sides to this, because one of the misapprehensions about misperceptions about the Muslim community is that it's somehow monolithic. And, setting aside differences between Shia and Sunni, the Muslim country that I lived in when I was a child, Indonesia, obviously is very different from Pakistan, is very different from Saudi Arabia. And so we have to also recognize that there are going to be differences based on national identity and not just faith.
You're making this speech in Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
Amnesty International says there are thousands of political prisoners in Egypt. How do you address that issue?
Well, look, obviously in the Middle East, across a wide range of types of governments, there are some human rights issues. I don't think there's any dispute about that. The message I hope to deliver is that democracy, rule of law, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, those are not simply principles of the West to be hoisted on these countries, but rather what I believe to be universal principles that they can embrace and affirm as part of their national identity. Now, the danger, I think, is when the United States or any country thinks that we can simply impose these values on another country with a different history and a different culture.
But you can encourage.
Our job, absolutely we can encourage. And I expect we will be encouraging. And I think the thing that we can do most importantly is serve as a good role model. And that's why, for example, closing Guantanamo, from my perspective, as difficult as it is important. Because part of what we want to affirm to the world is that these are values that are important even when it's hard, maybe especially when it's hard, and not just when it's easy.
Do you regard President Mubarak as an authoritarian ruler?
No, I tend not to use labels for folks. I haven't met him. I've spoken to him on the phone. He has been a stalwart ally in many respects to the United States. He has sustained peace with Israel, which is a very difficult thing to do in that region, but he has never resorted to unnecessary demagoguing of the issue, and has tried to maintain that relationship. So I think he has been a force for stability and good in the region. Obviously, there have been criticisms of the manner in which politics operates in Egypt. And as I said before, the United States' job is not to lecture, but to encourage, to lift up what we consider to be the values that ultimately will work not just for our country, but for the aspirations of a lot of people.